Welcome back to the Classic and Current Gaming Podcast, a weekly podcast where we look at the history and development of a different video game each and every week. I'm your host, RxDude22, and this is Season 2 of the podcast where we're exploring all the games being used in the Retro Gaming League. The Retro Gaming League is a competitive league on Facebook where pages come together each and every week and compete against each other in a different retro game. This week's game is from the Sega Genesis. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Hyperstone Heist. Let's get right to the podcast. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Hyperstone Heist, released in Europe as Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles The Hyperstone Heist, and as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Return to the Shredder in Japan, is the first TMNT game for the Sega Genesis, released in 1992 by Konami. It was Konami's debut title for the Genesis. It is a side-scrolling beat-em-up game and reuses elements from the first TMNT arcade game and its sequel Turtles in Time. The game was re-released as part of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Cowabunga Collection in 2022. Plot of the game. April O'Neil is reporting from Ellis Island when, in a sudden flash of light, her audience and herself witness Manhattan Island suddenly starting to shrink. Shredder then hijacks the airwaves and announces to the world that this was only a demonstration of the power of the Hyperstone, the treasure of Dimension X. With the Hyperstone in his possession, he now has the power to take over the world. The Turtles have no choice but to go after Shredder and stop him. Gameplay. The gameplay of the Hyperstone Heist is heavily based on the second Ninja Turtles arcade game Turtles in Time, which was also released for the Super NES during the same year. The controls are similar to Turtles in Time, but the ability to dash is now assigned to a specific button, and the player can no longer throw enemies towards the screen. There are a total of 5 stages: New York City, a mysterious ghost ship, Shredder's hideout, the Gauntlet, and the final Shell Shock, which comprises a combination of new levels created specifically for this game and ones based on levels from the first arcade game and Turtles in Time. The bosses include Leatherhead, Rocksteady, having an attack pattern similar to the one that he had in the first arcade game, Tatsu, Shredder's right-hand man from the first 2 live-action films, who also appeared in TMNT Manhattan Missions, Baxter Stockman in his human form like in the first arcade game, Krang, and Super Shredder. The Hyperstone Heist is notable for being the only game to feature Rocksteady as an enemy character without his partner Bebop. Levels. Scene 1, New York City. This level takes place in and below New York City. The Turtles must fight their way through a revamp of the city sewers from the first arcade game, then up in the streets in a revamp of the Alley Cat Blues level in Turtles in Time, with some elements from the parking garage level from the first arcade game, and then once again in the sewers, which now has the pizza monsters from the sewer surfing level in Turtles in Time. At the end of this level, Leatherhead appears as a boss character in a very similar way he did previously in Turtles in Time. Scene 2, a mysterious ghost ship. This level is a mix of 3 levels from Turtles in Time. It begins with a surfing level based on sewer surfing, except in the open sea instead of the sewers. The Turtles eventually reach a ghost ship, which is modified skull and crossbones level. After going through it, they jump off and land in a cave, which was part of prehistoric turtlesaurs, and where Rocksteady awaits them, who fights in a way similar to the original arcade game. Scene 3, Shredder's hideout. After exiting the cave, the Turtles find they are in a Japanese town just outside of Shredder's hideout. They fight their way through the streets and then back into and fight through Shredder's hideout until they reach Tatsu, Shredder's right-hand man and the second in command of the Foot Clan in the first and second TMNT movies. It is the only one of only 2 games to feature Shredder's right-hand man in the first 2 TMNT movies, Tatsu. Scene 4, the Gauntlet. After leaving Shredder's hideout, the Turtles find that they are in another cave. They have to fight recolored, non-talkative, and stronger versions of Leatherhead, Rocksteady, and Tatsu, the first 3 level bosses, before reaching this level's boss, Baxter Stockman, who fights in his machine from the original arcade game. Scene 5, Technodrome, the final Shell Shock. This level is a mix of the Starbase, where no Turtles Gone Before level, the Technodrome Let's Kick Shell level in the SNES versions of Turtles in Time, and the Technodrome The Final Shell Shock level. It is divided into 3 sections. The first 2, which are separated by a boss, Krang, in his exosuit, taken from the Neon Knight Riders level, and the final section being a boss fight. The Turtles walk through the first section, while the second is an elevator type level, with the difference that the elevator is going down instead of up, as in the SNES game. When they reach the bottom of the elevator shaft, the Turtles walk out and fight Super Shredder, on the same platform as in Technodrome The Final Shell Shock. However, instead of having the Statue of Liberty in the background, since Shredder did not steal it in the storyline of this game, a red and blue machine is visible behind him. Super Shredder fights very similarly to his Turtle in Time counterpart, except his upward attack doesn't freeze you. Gameplay differences from Turtles in Time. While most aspects of Turtles in Time were carried over to the Hyperstone Heist, some changes were made to the gameplay. The most notable one is that the Hyperstone Heist has a run button, while in Turtles in Time the Turtles would run a while after walking or after the player tapped the directional pad twice in the designated direction. Another noticeable change is that the Turtles will no longer throw the foot soldiers, though they still can slam them back and forth on the ground after they dash attack them. This was also considered to be the only game in which Rocksteady appeared without Bebop. Critical response. By itself, the Hyperstone Heist is considered a good adaptation of the TMNT show into the game form. When compared to Turtles in Time, the Hyperstone Heist features fewer but longer levels, has less special effects, louder and somewhat raspy digitized voices, and loud sound effects. Thanks to the superior color palette of the Super NES, Turtles in Time looks brighter and more colorful and uses special zooming effects in some areas and with some moves. But the Genesis includes more background layers, faster and clearer animation, frames, and overall faster gameplay. Both games share nearly the same soundtrack and sound effects, but the songs play faster in the Hyperstone Heist. Though there are fewer than half the levels in the Genesis game compared to the SNES game, each level is longer. Furthermore, the Hyperstone Heist is arguably more difficult thanks to a more aggressive enemy AI and faster moving characters. Screw Attack named it the 19th best Genesis game ever in their top 20 list, although they dismissed it as a direct clone of Turtles in Time, which they consider to be the best beat-em-up ever. Reception. The game received positive reviews upon release. In Game Fan magazine, Dave Halverson, Skid, said Konami brings the arcade thrill home with a beat-em-up blast-a-minute that has some of the best character animation you'll ever see, while Brody said it has some of the most hilarious two-player beat-em-up action ever seen. Insomniac of GamePro magazine called it a 16-bit graphic and game-playing work of art, and said it brings excellent and arcade-quality graphics, sound, gameplay to your home unit. The most common criticisms of the Hyperstone Heist focused on its difficulty, length, and repetitiveness. Megatech magazine gave an overall score of 87%, praising the graphics and sound, but commenting that the gameplay wasn't hard work and experienced players would be able to beat the game easily. 4 reviewers of Electronic Gaming Monthly gave the game positive ratings, praising the graphics and the animation, although there was criticism for the game being too easy and not having enough levels. Mega Action criticized the game for being too easy and gave praise to its graphics, calling it fairly impressive. They also commented that the Hyperstone Heist had a lot of potential but used it very sparingly, stating that the Hyperstone Heist isn't a terrible game, but the Turtles do deserve better. They concluded with a 78% review score. Kirk Rutter of Mega Guide praised the game's action, graphics, and the 2-player mode, but felt that Hyperstone Heist was similar to Turtles in Time. Conceding that the action was fun at first, he criticized it for becoming repetitive and the difficulty for being too easy, concluding, the lack of real challenge knocks a big dent in its lastability. But it's still a laugh. Power Unlimited gave a score of 90% and recommended the game to those who are fans of TMNT, but criticized the repetitive gameplay. All information here provided by Wikipedia and Turtlepedia. And that'll bring a conclusion to episode 21 of the Classic and Current Game podcast, where we looked at TMNT The Hyperstone Heist from the Sega Genesis. There are multiple ways to catch the podcast. You can watch it on YouTube, you can listen to it on Spotify, or many other listening platforms as well. This will be the last episode for this year, as we'll get back to it in January after the holiday. And the next game we'll go through will be Pilot Wings, which is the next game to be used for the Retro Gaming League starting in January. Everybody have a great holiday season. It's been RX-Dude22 from Classic and Current Gaming Podcast signing out. Keep on gaming. See you on the next stream. Be good to each other, and you'll hear me on the next podcast. Everybody have a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you in 2024. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.